you have all this access to this wealth of information that if you were a new rep onboarding 5 years ago, you'd have to shadow physical calls taking place in different rooms at different times in different places. Today, you can binge for a week on Gong libraries and you get all that information spoon-fed to you.
Welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast, hosted by Bernie Borges. This is the podcast for the modern marketer who wants to hear from their peers in the trenches and the occasional analyst or rockstar influencer sharing strategies and tactics about what's working in modern marketing. Be sure to listen to the end of each episode for Bernie's summary and takeaways so you can plan your next move in your own modern marketing journey.
Hey there, welcome to episode 257 of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. I'm Bernie Borges, CMO of Ingresso, and your host. Hey, thanks for listening. Hey, my guest on this episode is Udi Ledergor, Vice President of Marketing at Gong.io. Udi, welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast.
Hey, Bernie. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to our conversation. I love your company name. And so why don't we begin there, Udi? Let's, we're going to talk about how to harness customer conversations, sales conversations to drive measurable results. That's our key topic. But let's start where I always like to start is an introduction to your company, Gong.
Sure. So Gong was founded by Amit Ben-Dov and Eilon Reshef, two Israeli serial entrepreneurs. And as my CEO, Amit likes to say, Gong was founded in a quarter from hell. At that time, Amit was the CEO of another successful company called Sisense. They're a BI company. The quarter wasn't going as planned, as sometimes will happen, and Amit was scrambling to find out what was going wrong. He was asking salespeople, he was asking their managers. No one knew what was different from previous quarters when everyone was hitting numbers. And then he started listening to sales calls that were recorded, just figure out were people changing their pitch, were they talking differently. And you can listen, if you've ever tried this, you can listen to 2, 3, 4, 5 calls, and then pretty much you snap because it's really time consuming. Calls until recently were not indexed. You couldn't easily jump to one part or another. You didn't know what they were talking about, let alone trying to figure out patterns of what was going on. And Amit was thinking there had to be a better way. And at that point, he decided to go and found Gong. And so today, Gong is the leading conversation intelligence platform. And that means that we're helping sales teams really understand what's going on in their customer conversations and allowing them to solve what we call the $1 million questions of the business, like understanding why they're really losing 5 out of 6 deals or what their top reps are really doing differently to close so many more deals.
Fantastic. And Udi, your role there, you're VP of Marketing. So what's that look like at Gong?
So marketing at Gong is really responsible for 2 things. One of them is demand generation. We are the ones responsible for providing at least 80% of the pipeline that our sales team needs in order to close the number of deals that we need to make our numbers. So that keeps most of the team very busy. And the second thing that we focus on is brand building. And those things go hand in hand. Happy to talk about that if we have time today or another time. So demand gen and brand building are really the 2 areas of focus for marketing right now.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, I did not know the backstory on Gong, so thank you for sharing that with me and the listener. So let's get into the main topic, and that is really how to harness those customer conversations. And, you mentioned that the genesis was the pain by trying to understand, what was going on. So how is it that you can actually uncover whether or not salespeople are saying the right messaging, what they're saying, when they're saying it? How do you actually uncover that in customer conversations?
Sure, that's a great question. I'd like to roll back and first sort of look at the current situation where some of the problems lie. Maybe that'll make it easier to understand today's solutions. If you look at CRM systems, they were designed for sales managers, for the CRO, for the VP to pretty much understand quickly what's going on in their pipeline. They were not designed to provide value to the salespeople, the people in the trenches, getting on calls every day, writing emails, going to meetings. Those CRM systems are basically enslaving the salespeople to enter information while giving them very little value. And the result of that structure or premise is that CRM systems are always outdated because salespeople always have something more urgent to do than update their CRM on how that call went. They are inherently biased because I've yet to meet the salesperson who will write in the call, I failed to show this customer our value. And they are constantly suffering from very partial, fragmented information. Do you know how many words are spoken in a 1-hour sales call? About 6,000. About 6,000 words are spoken in a 1-hour sales call. Do you know how many make it to the CRM in the call summary? About 30. Yeah,
Wow.
30 to 50. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you've already lost 95% of the information. You're getting it late and you're getting it biased. How useful could that possibly be? So that is the problem with CRM system. They were not designed for capturing customer conversation and understanding what's really going on in your organization. And so your question was how can organizations really use customer conversations to understand what was going on? That was the question?
Yeah. So in other words, in the context of how sales leaders can really understand what's working and why are their salespeople successful, those that are, and why are those that are not successful, what are they doing wrong?
So here's the situation. The problem with, if you look at current machine learning, it needs a certain critical mass of data to get learnings, way more data than you or I could probably hold in our head and figure out for ourselves. So here's an example for you. Gong has a customer in Toronto, a very nice company called Touch Bistro. They provide a point of sale system to restaurants and cafes. And their sales team started using Gong for a while. And like most sales teams, they noticed that there was a big difference between their top performers and their bottom performers. And every sales team has them, right, by definition. And they couldn't put their finger on what the top performers were doing differently from the bottom performers. And they started using Gong, and within like 3 or 4 weeks, the machine learning component of Gong surfaced an insight that instantly made sense to them. And it turns out that by looking at the sales results in the company's CRM, Gong knows which deals are being closed and which are being lost. And then Gong can reverse engineer the call patterns that led the salespeople to either winning or losing a deal. And in this specific case, and I'm quoting this with permission from Paul Snelson, the VP of Sales at Touch Bistro, Gong uncovered that those salespeople who focused on the software components of the company's solution were closing a lot more deals than the salespeople that were focusing initially on the hardware components of their solution. And just by getting that insight from Gong, you can easily solve the problem. You can retrain the salespeople, you can prepare different sales material, you can update the website, you can do whatever you need to focus on those components that the machine learning has found that will lead to more closed deals. And indeed, they very quickly saw a turnaround in business and increased their win rates just by making those changes. How cool is that?
That's awesome. But I have to ask, how do salespeople feel about it when they know that their calls are being recorded and then also analyzed?
That's a great question, and one that we were also very concerned about in the early days of Gong 3 years ago. We originally thought that we were building a system for sales managers to give them those insights that Amit was so desperate for at Sisense, trying to figure out what was going on. And then we quickly realized that we need to collect data in order to provide those insights. So rather than going the problematic route that CRM systems went, which is asking salespeople to put in manual labor to update the system, we decided to go for a different approach and automatically collect all this information. We thought that we'd ask salespeople to connect their calendars to Gong, and then Gong basically crawls through their calendars, and every time we see a link to a virtual meeting, like a Zoom link or a GoToMeeting link or a WebEx link or whatever, Gong would connect and record that call. And we definitely didn't think that salespeople would find the system useful, and we were definitely concerned that they might feel that Big Brother is watching over them. What we quickly discovered, to our very pleasant surprise, is that the salespeople loved it. Within usually about a week of trepidation and worrying and joking about Big Brother, the salespeople, their curiosity got the best of them, and they started going into the system, listening to their own calls and to the other reps' calls to see what they were doing differently and what they could learn from them. And we quickly saw that about 80% of the usage of our system is by the sales reps themselves. And even if you go to like reviews websites like G2, you'll see that at least 80% of the reviews, which are raving fan reviews, are written by the reps themselves. So they absolutely love this. Here's just a couple of the reasons that we found out. One, salespeople no longer need to take notes I know you're taking notes right now, Bernie. Imagine if you had this recorded and you didn't need to read back at the end of the call.
Well, we are recording. It's just not recording notes for me.
But you're not getting it in real time, of course. So salespeople can now focus on who they're talking to instead of taking notes because they know that everything is going to be transcribed and put into their CRM system. So that's already one huge benefit for the sales rep. Two, the sales reps can go and learn from the other reps on their team. If you're a new rep and you want to learn from the best of the best, you go to the libraries of calls that your best reps have recorded, and you go listen to their best winning calls. This is how they deal with competition. This is how they discuss pricing. This is how they discuss differentiation. So you have all this access to this wealth of information that if you were a new rep onboarding 5 years ago, you'd have to shadow physical calls taking place in different rooms at different times in different places. Today, you can binge for a week on Gong libraries, and you get all that information spoon-fed to you.
So I'm curious, Udi, then, with the positive reaction that you're seeing from the sales people, what about sales leaders? Is it an easy sell to them, or do you have to convince them as well?
I would generally say that it is an easy sell for most sales leaders, especially the good ones. I mean, I'm probably biased, but most sales leaders today, they realize that their customers have other choices. The competition is fiercer than ever, that product roadmaps are moving faster than ever, and customers have more choices than ever. And they want to have an edge on what's going on. And to have an edge, you first need to understand what's going on inside your own organization. And we're seeing a wonderful interest and sort of spike in inbound traffic of people looking to learn more about conversation intelligence and how a system like Gong can help them turn around their sales organizations. By now, Gong has around 600 customers in every industry, pretty much that you can think of, mostly around B2B though. So if you're just looking at what winning sales teams are doing in their field and you see what weapons they are using to succeed, most companies would want to use those same tools. Just like there's one CRM system that spread very quickly and became the standard. There's a couple of sales engagement systems that quickly became the standard. And there's really one conversation intelligence system that is quickly becoming the standard for winning sales teams.
Okay. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of my conversation with Udi Ledergor. We've surveyed 862 B2B sales reps across 5 industries to measure their digital selling skills. The results? Despite the digital age that we live and work in, most sales professionals lack the basic skills to find, engage, and connect on LinkedIn with people that they need to meet to start more sales conversations. Get the Vengresso State of Digital Selling with LinkedIn 2019 report to learn how sales professionals stack up on requisite modern selling skills. You'll also learn how you can arrange to get your own custom digital selling benchmark report for your sales team. To get the State of Digital Selling with LinkedIn 2019 report, go to stateofdigitalselling.com. Now, I would think that in addition to gaining insight, sales leaders gaining insights into the reps' conversations, what's working, what's not working, I would also think that you can pick up some competitive insights because in those sales conversations, they're going to be asking questions about who else you're talking to, what do you understand about our company, so maybe some brand perception. So there's probably a lot of other insights that sales leaders and even the C-suite can gain from those conversations beyond just what's working and not working.
You're absolutely right, Bernie. Here's how we like to think about it. We see achieving revenue success as really succeeding in 3 different pillars. One of them is people success, the other is deal success, and the third is strategy success. While we were talking before about sales coaching and really helping people improve their skills, that is the people skills pillar. What you asked about now is really falls into the strategy success. And as soon as you have this information, you realize the power that you have at your fingertips, you can set up fancy alerts with like 2 clicks of a button. So for example, in our own company, this is how we use Gong, and I know others use it in similar ways. Our CRO wants to know when there's an advanced stage deal with, say, $50,000 or more at stake, and a competitor name is mentioned on that call. That shoots out an alert in real time to the CRO, so he knows that that deal is now talking about competition and it might be at risk. you can immediately see how useful that is and how granular you can get. So you don't want to hear about every competitor mentioned, but sometimes you do want to see the overall stats. So we helped one of our customers, who I will not name, it's a big name that you all know. We helped them realize that one of their competitors was trending 28% more in calls in the last quarter compared to the previous quarter. And that triggered an entire messaging change and retraining on their messaging for their sales teams, because now they understood that this competitor is becoming a much bigger problem than it used to be. So you can get that information both at the individual deal level, but also at the overall aggregate level. And that can trigger different things that you want to do as an organization by either updating your messaging or intervening in a certain deal that needs help with.
So if I followed you on that, Udi, you actually just covered both deal and strategy, right? Because you alerted to the deal alert, and then you alerted to the trend of a competitor being discussed, which is more strategy than deal.
You're absolutely correct. You're one step ahead of me. I will add to deal success what I usually like to discuss as the benefits that understanding your customer conversations can provide for deal success is, imagine that you're getting your pipeline roll-up as a sales manager, getting the pipeline roll-up from your reps, and you see that one or more of the deals are in the forecast for this month, but you can easily see by looking at the customer conversations that customer hasn't been contacted in 3 weeks. Should it really still be in this month's forecast? And if it should be, isn't it time someone reached out to them today? So this is information you can easily get by gathering all your customer conversation information, and tools like Gong can easily show you where a next step was not set, where a customer has been neglected for far too long, where an action item was promised and not delivered. Just imagine the power. I mean, if I'm on this call with you right now and I'm saying, hey, Bernie, I'm going to send you that case study you asked for on Tuesday, and Tuesday comes and goes and I didn't send you that case study, Gong knows that I promised you that, and it can see that I haven't followed up on that. So that can be alerted, and you can see that on your dashboard as a sales manager, that Udi promised something he did not send. And first of all, I can see that myself and I can get reminded on it, so I actually do it. And my sales manager can see it. So that probably both triggers my motivation to make sure it's actually done, but also gives that sort of safety check that my manager can see it and help me get it done.
And how does Gong know that? Is it because of the integration with CRM?
It's with our integration with CRM, with emails, and with telephone and video conferencing. So we are the only conversation intelligence system that we know of that integrates with email servers, which means that we cover pretty much 100% of your customer conversations, because voice calls and video conferences are an important part of communicating with customers. But even customers who do a lot of their selling with voice and video still have a lot of emails before and after those calls. And by understanding all that 360 degree of communications, we know that you promised something in the call because we transcribed that. And we know when you send an email and what was in that email because we also connect to your email server. So if we see that on the call you promised to send a case study and on Tuesday no email went out because we see that, we can alert you on that.
Okay. Udi, I want to cover one more topic before I segue to my summary. And I want to shift gears a little bit because this is the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. And I want to ask you to remark on what's the role of marketing in tracking these sales conversations? How do marketing leaders get involved, contribute, and engage to make this happen?
So I think marketing leaders could use a healthy dose of listening to their customers' conversations and act upon them. I'll give a couple of examples that I think are useful. One thing that I use conversation intelligence for is listening, sampling some of my reps' calls to see what version of our messaging they're using. Any marketer or product marketer will attest to being frustrated at times, either not knowing that reps are using their latest version of messaging and improved sales decks and whatever materials they want them to use, or knowing that they're using the wrong version but not being able to prove it or do anything about it. So by using conversation intelligence, I can easily get both the granular anecdotal evidence that I need, but also the statistical evidence. I can know that 58% of my team are using the latest version and go figure out why the rest of the team are not. So that's one way I can see what my team is doing and whether my training and enablement is actually effective. And if not, I can take steps to fix it. The other thing I can do is really listen to the voice of the customer. And I can hear how customers are responding to that latest messaging, allowing me to work in much faster cycles of seeing if anything needs updating. I now have that information in almost real time. I don't have to wait 6 to 12 months to see what's resonated in the market, right? So if, first of all, again, let's assume that all my salespeople are doing a terrific job and 100% of them are delivering the exact message that I wanted to. If I see that causes a drop in close rates, there might be a problem with my messaging. If I see that triggers questions that I didn't anticipate, clarification questions from customers, I know that I should go back to the messaging and update that. And maybe one last example, if I'm rolling out a new price list and my people are rolling it out, and I know they're rolling it out because I can see it in Gong, but I see that I'm getting a lot of pushback and a lot of mentions of the topic and the words around discount since I launched the new pricing. Now I know I have a problem that I need to fix, right? And this could take you 6 to 12 months without this real-time system telling you what's going on in the market right now. So these systems really bring you much closer to the market, much closer to reality to understand what's going on and enhance your ability to react in real time.
Yeah, I love that. Closer to the market, closer to reality in real time. That's fantastic. All right. Well, we are at a point in the podcast, Udi, where I am going to do a recap, a summary of what we discussed. And then you know the drill. I'm going to ask you to comment, fill in any holes, or if I jog your memory on a point that maybe we didn't cover yet, fill that in. Then we'll ask you for some digital contact information and then bring this episode to a wrap. And we begin our conversation with a brief introduction to your company, Gong. Love the name, awesome name, founded by two Israeli entrepreneurs. They were trying to really solve a problem in their then company. Like, why are we not making our sales? So they started listening to sales calls, but it was very manual, and said, hey, there's got to be a better way. So that was really sort of the inspiration to start the company Gong and really focus on conversation intelligence and building the conversation intelligence platform that you call Gong. And the idea is to basically understand what's going on in those conversations. And as we speak today, you said you've got about 600 customers, mostly B2B across all industries. Your role there as VP of Marketing is demand generation. You said you're responsible for 80% of the pipeline, and then also your brand building. Fantastic. So we talked about how to uncover insights from customer conversations. And you said that, well, first of all, the reason that it's important is because the technology that has been around for some time now, the CRM technology that is really designed to help sales managers, not salespeople. And it really, I love the way you said this, Udi. It enslaves salespeople, but really gives them very little value. It's always outdated. It's inherently biased. And the data that's in it is really just a fraction of the data that is really taking place in conversations. And so when it comes to capturing conversations through machine learning, it's really all about capturing it in real time. You give the example of a customer of yours who sells point of sale software to restaurants. They were not able to identify the difference between the top performers and the bottom performers. And so looking in CRM, they were able to kind of reverse engineer the call patterns. And then Gong was able to uncover the fact that those that were talking about the software as opposed to the hardware, or more about the software versus the hardware, were the ones that really succeeding the most. So it really leads to the fact that it's really about helping salespeople at the sales level as one of the three pillars. And then we talked about the reaction of salespeople. And I have to tell you, Udi, this one surprised me. You said that you initially thought Gong was going to be for sales managers, but it turns out salespeople love it. It allows them to really understand what's working for their own calls as well as other reps' calls, and really be able to, listen to the best of the best, as well as you said, they don't have to take notes like I was taking notes during this conversation, because Gong is transcribing it for them and entering it into their CRM. And of course, sales leaders love it because they're able to really understand what's going on, and it can give them a competitive edge. So all of that was really focused on the salesperson, but you also said that there's two other benefits One is around understanding deal status. You can create alerts and that kind of thing. And so understanding, if reps are delivering on the promise that they make on a deal, and also strategy to really understand what's going on within the marketplace. And as you said, in real time. And that led us to the last part of our conversation, Udi, where we talked about what do marketing leaders need to do to really embrace this real-time conversation intelligence. And you said it's all about listening to customer conversations through this intelligence. So, for example, listening to what reps are saying and see what version of the messaging that they're using. Are they using the most recent version? Are they using it correctly? Is the training and the enablement that's being delivered, is it effective? It allows marketers to really listen to the voice of the customer and understand firsthand from the customer the perception of their brand, the perception of the industry, the perception of the marketplace, of the competitors, and also reaction to pricing, getting real-time reaction from customers. And really just being able to do that in the aggregate by listening to multiple conversations and just combining all those insights into sort of an aggregate strategic level view. So, Udi, I'm going to leave my summary there. Is there anything that you would like to add?
I'm blown away, Bernie. I need a note taker like you. Luckily, I have an app for that. But seriously, that was some serious note taking. I guess the only thing I can add is offering my help to listeners who want to get in touch. So I'm available on LinkedIn. I'm the only Udi Ledergor on LinkedIn. That's UDI, that's Udi, and Ledergor is Ledergor. I'm the only one out there. And if anyone wants to learn more about how conversation intelligence can help them, then Gong.io is the place to go for that. And all you need to do is ask for a demo, and one of our friendly product specialists will be happy to help you with that.
And I'm sure that call will be recorded.
It will be with your consent.
Fantastic. Well, Udi, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast.
Thanks for having me, Bernie. This was fun.
This wraps up another inspiring episode of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. If you want to share this podcast with a friend, let them know that we're available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Podcasts. And we love 5-star reviews. If you are not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. You can read the show notes for each episode at vengresso.com. While you're there, sign up to receive the show notes delivered to your inbox through our weekly alerts. And be sure to also check out our Selling with Social podcast hosted by Vengresso CEO Mario Martinez Jr. Again, you'll find our show notes at vengresso.com. And that's one S in Vengresso. Tune in again next week when Bernie Borges brings you another inspiring interview to help you thrive on your modern marketing journey.